Hi, this is Todd Campbell with The Motley Fool, and today I want to talk about Biogen's third quarter results, specifically what impact Tecfidera had on share prices following that third quarter report. To begin, it's important to know that Tecfidera is a drug that treats multiple sclerosis, or MS. MS is a very important disease indication. There are millions of people that are affected by it every year. And as a result, there are a number of very high-profile drugs that are prescribed to MS patients to help them reduce the number of annual relapses they have annually. The best-selling of those is Teva Pharmaceuticals' Copax-1. That drug does about $4 billion in annual sales. However, that being said, Biogen is a significant leader in multiple sclerosis, or MS, drug therapy. They produce two drugs that are already blockbusters, Avonex and Tysabri. Both of those drugs are very widely used. They added a third, however, multiple sclerosis drug in 2013, and that is Tecfidera. Tecfidera is an oral MS drug, which means that you don't need to rely on injections. You can simply take it in tablet form. During clinical trials, it performed very, very well. It was not the first oral drug to win the FDA go-ahead for use in MS patients. It was the third. However, since going out and marketing this drug, it has become the #1 prescribed oral medication for MS in the United States. And many people believe that Tecfidera could go on to become the #1 prescribed MS therapy globally as it rolls out in more countries in the European Union over the coming year. Regardless, in the third quarter report, Biogen made investors aware that a patient had been diagnosed with a rare brain disease known as PML, and sadly that patient had passed away. Investors' first reaction was to unload shares, which at one point drove Biogen down about 11% to about $290 per share. Very significant sell-off. But before we begin to draw the direct line between Tecfidera and this patient's death, we have to understand that the rare brain disease, PML, this is not the first time that it's been diagnosed in MS patients taking drugs designed to reduce those relapses. In fact, in 2005, Biogen had to halt sales of Tysabri because of 3 PML cases that were diagnosed in order for a study to be conducted on 3,000 patients to determine the likelihood of getting PML. What they discovered is that the chance of getting PML while taking Tysabri was less than, or right about 0.1%, a very low incidence rate. And since Tysabri was such a successful drug in reducing relapses, and so many patients went on to have relapses once it was halted, the FDA allowed for Tysabri sales to continue. Tysabri has since gone on to become a blockbuster drug. The company, Biogen, reported that sales so far this year in the first 9 months total about $1.5 billion. Now, Tecfidera already dwarfs that. Tecfidera's sales in the first 9 months are just shy of $2 billion. That said, again, Tecfidera is not the first oral drug, but it's also not the first oral drug where there's been questions about PML. The first drug that was approved by the FDA was Novartis Gilenya. And Gilenya has gone on to become also very, very a top-selling drug. They did about $2 billion in revenue. Novartis did from selling Gilenya last year. However, last fall, sure enough, there was a case reported of a Gilenya patient who developed PML. Now, there's been some debate on whether or not maybe that patient had had PML prior to beginning therapy with Gilenya. However, questions still remain about, is there a connection between PML and Gilenya? That being said, it has not slowed down sales of Gilenya. Gilenya is currently running at a sales pace of about $2.4 billion a year annualized, based on the most recent quarter data that we have available. So drawing the line and saying, okay, Tecfidera equals PML, maybe, maybe not. drawing the line saying that Tecfidera sales will somehow slump dramatically from here because of this one PML patient, that remains to be seen. Most people expect that Tecfidera will remain a very important drug as long as the case of PML remains an isolated case. My expectation would be that Biogen will be able to continue to deliver sales growth over the course of next year, and that Tecfidera's revenue will most likely climb closer to the $3 billion a year mark from the $2 billion a year mark by, the end of 2015 or early 2016. If that's the case, then Biogen's earnings per share should continue to climb. Now, we already saw coming out of the third quarter that Biogen has boosted up its earnings per share guidance for this year. Unlikely that they would have done that if they felt that they were going to see a big drop off in Tecfidera. So my opinion, where I'm coming down on Tecfidera, Biogen, and the sell-off is that it created an opportunity for long-term investors to go in and get shares in the company. Until we know more, until there's more PML cases where we would be able to say that there is indeed a problem, I would stay pat with the stock. I think that that was a buy opportunity and that the earnings will most likely continue to go higher. For The Motley Fool, I'm Todd Campbell.